Yes, very happy to. So I'm based in the UK. I established my business in 2010, and I'm a leadership coach. Probably 60% of my work is one-on-one coaching, and I have a chunk working with leadership teams, and then the rest is consultancy and some leadership training. I'm very lucky in that I have some core clients that I've been working with the whole way along, and I'm at a stage, that said, where I really want to take the business on to another level. And so what I'd love to understand is how to align this next phase. So I'm active on Facebook, I'm active to a lesser degree on Instagram, but I am active, and do quite a bit on LinkedIn. But what I'm wondering is how can I create something that feels like it's hanging together as an aligned approach, rather than flurries of activity in what might feel like different directions?
Right. Well, that's a lovely question. That's a really lovely question. Okay, so just to clarify, are we, to use the words executive coach and leadership team facilitator?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you just explain a little bit more about what you specialize in from the executive coaching side, and also where you feel your strong USPs are? I guess I might be offering similar services.
So the key difference, I suppose, in my approach is I work with a systemic lens, and to be a little bit more clear on what I mean by that, looking at the wider system with it. Well, if I just take when I'm coaching as an example, if I'm working with a leader, I'm really helping them take into consideration all of the systems that have influenced them up to this point in time. So I mean both organizationally and I mean personally. Quite often people are replaying strategies from one system into the other unconsciously, and being able to understand what dynamics are at play so they can make some conscious choices from a leadership standpoint. So that's what I mean by a systemic lens.
Okay.
Looking at that wider context.
Right. Okay. So I can try and answer this question for you as well. If you had to look at the sort of 4 or 5 key industry sectors that you've sort of worked with, where would you say they mainly fall? Or where would you say your main strengths are? I mean, have you got a stronger background, for example, in technology, or?
Well, 2 sectors in particular. One will be in the media environment, and mainly print, books, magazines, a little bit of radio, but media in general. I understand that marketplace, both B2B and B2C. That's where my career has been.
Okay.
And my last employed role would have been in private healthcare. So those 2 sectors in the main.
Okay, right, great. Well, I'm going to probably state something which may be a bit obvious to you, but if you don't mind, it's also for the benefits of other people as well. But well, clearly where you're going to probably typically be able to charge the highest charge-up rates and offer the greatest value will be in the sectors where you've got most, where you're most experienced. In fact, one of the things that we find, for example, a particular, I imagine a challenge for you, but sometimes do you have a challenge in the sense that because the type of provision that you provide can actually work with most industry sectors, do you find it sometimes a challenge to actually narrow down the people you're trying to reach? Is that a bit of a challenge for you sometimes?
I've done some work on that, so I think that could have been a challenge in the past. I've got clear on who my buyer is.
Okay.
And that would be classically HR directors,
okay.
Which I've been myself previously, so I've been in that buying seat.
Oh, brilliant. Okay.
So those would be my main points of contact, and I think because I've been in that seat, I understand the challenges of that kind of role.
Okay, great. So that's another strong USP as well, isn't it? If you look at that, especially when you combine it with your other skills. One of the things that I think when I explain to people, they pretty well get it straight away. The way I tend to suggest to people where they are less clear on that, and obviously it sounds to be reasonably clear, is that if someone actually looks at each individual skill set they have, and also then looks at all the people they served in the past and where they've got most experience, if people actually basically draw a series of Venn diagrams, what you do is you put each skill set in one circle, or it might be another set of Venn diagrams which deals with your ideal type of clients you've worked with from the past and where you feel the main strengths are. And what you do is you take those circles, the ones which obviously overlap, clearly are going to have the greatest value, are going to be your sweet spot. And the one that's, of course, got the highest level of overlap, which is when all 3 circles overlap, then that's where obviously your sort of real sweet spot is. And sometimes this doesn't apply so much to you, Tess, because it sounds like you're already very focused. But in many cases, we come across where people perhaps describe themselves as generalists. And it's about really narrowing down. The reason I'm focusing on that a little bit is that once you're clear on that, it suddenly becomes much easier to reach your ideal target clients. As you probably well know, have you done any paid for type advertising on Facebook or LinkedIn?
Correct, yeah.
Which platforms have you tried?
Facebook. In terms of paid for, Facebook.
Okay, all right. How's that worked for you?
Well, actually, that's not true. I've done a little bit of paid for on Instagram as well. So I had good engagement, but to the best of my knowledge, no conversion, or at least not directly linked anyway.
Yeah. Okay. No, why do you choose Facebook over and above, say, LinkedIn instead as point of interest?
Well, I'm very active on LinkedIn, but I don't tend to do any paid for stuff on it.
Okay. No, that's thank you for that. Okay. It's interesting enough with Facebook, as we touched on a bit earlier on this call. It can work very well in certain sectors, and especially if you've got a very consumer-focused product. But it can be incredibly expensive, although it may sound quite low cost. But when I say expensive, because the trouble is that, as we've perhaps spoken with other people before, a click is literally just a click, or engagement is just a piece of engagement. It doesn't mean to say it's not worth doing, but you've then got to, once people have landed on your website, then you've got to take some form of action, otherwise you don't know who they are, and to opt into something. Now there's a bit of a caveat I'm going to say to that, which is a bit of a positive thing around all this. But it's just worth bearing in mind. So if, for example, you found some of that a bit challenging in the past, invariably you've probably done nothing wrong at all. It's just that it requires quite a bit of experimentation to really hone that down, and very clear strategies. Otherwise, it can be very easy to burn through quite large amounts of cash. Like I do also speak a little bit from experience on that space as well, having made a few mistakes on Facebook as well as getting a little bit right too. One part that can work quite well on Facebook, which can work very well as part of a coordinated strategy. We're going to come on to LinkedIn in just a moment as well. This applies a little bit to Instagram too, because obviously Facebook and Instagram are obviously owned by Zuckerberg anyway, so it comes out of the same stable now. But it's things like retargeting. So, for example, let's say you've got traffic coming through to your website, or you're driving traffic through from LinkedIn onto your website. So what you can do is install what's classed as a Facebook pixel on the relevant pages on your site. And then what happens, let's say you have someone go to LinkedIn, they go to a certain page on your website, the Facebook pixel picks that up. What you can then do is do what's classed as retargeting. So Facebook would then know that that person has also visited the website. So you can present specific offers which are relevant to that person who's already shown an interest. So they're already warm. Now, obviously, once people have opted in, it's much easier because you can communicate by email or by phone or whatever it may be. But the trouble is that a lot of people just go onto your website and then just go away again. And unless you've got some form of pixel installed, and Google do something similar as well, it's very difficult to then build on the next engagement because you'll almost lost them forever. So that's where that can work very well. Now, targeting, retargeting it's called, can be a little bit more expensive. But in real terms, the way we tend to engage now on platform, generally, if you imagine it, you may start off a piece of communication on Facebook. That may then lead to you finding them on LinkedIn. You might try and outreach them to the person on LinkedIn. That may then result in them engaging with you. You might then send an email to that person to ask for some more information. That may then lead to a phone call. That phone call perhaps doesn't go anywhere straight away. But what actually happens, because you've been able to communicate with them through multiple channels, then you've got the ability to communicate through LinkedIn, through email. But although you wouldn't necessarily know that who they are on Facebook, the fact is the Facebook pixel would be able to pick them up. So you'd be able to retarget them with advertising. You can do the same thing with Google. You may well have found that there's certain adverts that seem to follow you everywhere. And I don't know whether you've actually found that when you've, sometimes it can be very useful because it's things you're really interested in. Sometimes it can be a bit irritating. But have you noticed on that, sometimes adverts will appear to follow you in different locations? Yeah, and that's basically because they're doing retargeting, okay? But it can be very, very powerful. But what I would say is it's probably better to get some of the organic side sorted out first. Now, basically, because you are of what you specialize in, I would suggest to you the vast majority of people that you're going to get the best results with are going to be through LinkedIn. Okay. Now, the good news is that, well, the bad news is first, I'll give you some good news. If you were to do paid for advertising on LinkedIn, it can be much more expensive than Facebook. Okay. Also, with LinkedIn, they haven't really got it quite right, like Mark Zuckerberg has done with Facebook and Instagram, in the sense that the whole thing can feel rather clunky. People who've tried doing LinkedIn advertising, the people I've spoken to about it haven't actually ended up getting great results, mainly because the cost is so much higher in the first place, but the level of targeting you do isn't quite the same. But it doesn't mean to say it doesn't work. You just need to be mindful of it. They also do something called sponsored email as well. So if you were an upgraded member, you might get 15 credits per month, whatever the number is. That you can, if you pay LinkedIn a lot of money, do something called sponsored email as well. And unfortunately, LinkedIn are not sometimes there. Sometimes they can be a bit their own worst enemies because they can actually encourage you to go out with a sales message with that. But in reality, because LinkedIn it is a social network, people forget that we build relationships. We focus on building relationships. People don't like feeling they're being sold to unless there's a bit of a relationship there in the first place. So we suggest a completely different type of approach. The good news is, so that bad news is obviously that can be expensive. The good news is, apart from upgrading your account to LinkedIn Premium, but we probably suggest Sales Navigator, which costs anything from between about £40 to £60 a month, depending which package you go for, plus VAT. You don't need to pay for any pay-per-click at all, but the outreach you can do through LinkedIn can be very powerful. As a matter of interest, have you experimented with that at all?
Well, the quick answer would be no, but I do have the premium in-mail version, so I don't know if that's the same thing that you're speaking about.
Okay, so are you paying monthly fee to LinkedIn?
Yes.
Okay, do you remember what it is?
Not off the top of my head, no, sorry.
We're giving you a clue which one you've got. You did reference LinkedIn Premium, so I suspect it may be that, because if you were using Sales Navigator, it's got a completely different look and feel to it.
Okay.
All right. Now, we'll just bear me a second, if that's right. I just want to make sure that I'm not losing people along the way, because I want to give other people time as well. But don't worry, you're asking some great questions here, so I do want to cover this off. So just a quick shout out to everyone else, by the way. Do keep the questions coming in. I've got some others which have been phoned through in advance as well. I've got a couple of people actually rung in, so of course they can't use the chat window for it. So do keep the questions coming in, and if you would like to ask a question, then by all means just indicate as well whether you're happy for me to open up the mic as well, like we're doing just now. But anyway, just to return to your question, Tess. So if you took Sales Navigator, the reason I'm suggesting Sales Navigator on LinkedIn Premium is about 2 or 3 years ago, when Microsoft got involved, they added the e-learning platform Linda into it, but they also took out some of the functionality of LinkedIn Premium. So for example, the searching in LinkedIn Premium is not as powerful as it is in Sales Navigator. And then also the other thing to bear in mind is that they also took out the ability to tag records. So basically, and that's actually quite important. Okay. So the good news is it's all there still in Sales Navigator. Okay. So what that does enable you to do is we talked about a little earlier on. So if we took Just give me one of your industry sectors you're particularly interested in again.
Just before I do that, I quickly checked. I'm paying £39.54 a month.
Okay, I think you've probably got LinkedIn Premium.
Okay.
All right, so if you want a more powerful search, then you go for Sales Navigator. You may even get a 30-day free trial as part of it if you've not used it before.
Okay.
All right.
So sorry, what was the question that you just asked me?
Yeah, so just remind me, give me one key industry sector that would be a primary industry sector for you.
So media.
Okay, so media. I think it might come under media and communications, I think. So
yeah, probably.
Yeah, okay, so the good thing is, and then presumably you ideally want to reach, you mentioned HR directors, but you ideally would like to reach people at most senior level you can with the organisation. So, and have you got any preferences about location?
No, I would prefer UK. I have done loads of work globally, but I prefer UK. Okay. But other than that, no.
All right, so is a lot of your training and support done via video conferencing as well?
I would say probably 60% is face-to-face, 40% virtual.
Okay, no, that's good. Okay, so, well, just to slightly reconfirm a little bit what we talked about earlier on. So media and communications, it's one of the 147 industry classifications which are available on LinkedIn. Okay, so I can't remember the exact title for it, but it's along this type of lines. And what you can do is, location for what you're saying is a bit less important for you, but you can just put in UK and it'll bring up all business in the UK. It may be that because the numbers will come up be so big, you might choose to narrow it down, say, to of London and the southeast. Now, just one little tip when you're searching on distance, and this may help. On location, this may help other people who are listening in as well. Is it's not a good idea to put in a town or a county name into LinkedIn and search by that, because the reason is, if for example we took London as a case in point, Kingston is it's a London borough. Okay, I'm not sure it's actually got maybe a class as Hampshire or something. I'm not quite sure. But if someone in their profile puts down Kingston, then but actually you put in London, and of course it's potentially going to miss those people out. And equally, the converse is true as well. So it's actually much better to actually find a postcode that's roughly in the epicenter of where you want to be, and then put in a distance, which might be a 5, 10, 20, 35, 50 mile, 100 mile radius. And then what it'll do is it'll bring up all businesses which fall within that radius. Okay, and that way you don't miss people out along the way. So that's a really good thing to do. So we talked about the exports industry sector by distance postcode, level of seniority, so director, CXO, vice president. Senior can be quite a good one, because you might have got someone who's a consultant, for example, as a doctor, for example, but they may actually not be a manager as such or a director, but you would capture them by putting in the word senior. You're choosing the senior option in there as well. Number of employees can be very relevant, but it's not always 100% accurate, because if you took coaches, for example, a lot of coaches might be part of an associate network of 50 other people, so they'll actually put down they've got 50 people, and actually they might be a business of 1 or 2 people. But nevertheless, it is a good guide. And then if you combine that with key phrase and keyword search as well, then that will really help you to hone that down. And then what you can do is you can go even further. Now, that LinkedIn might return the fact that you've actually got, it's come up with, say, 15,000 results, okay? You need to get that number down below 1,000, and that's quite crucial, because LinkedIn will, even if with the paid for products, will never give you more than that. Okay, and what you can then do is tag those records which you're interested in, and that becomes your target market. Now, has that helped a little bit so far?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Now, if you had wanted to know a little bit more about how all that works, and this applies to anyone else listening as well, if you were to go to businessgrowthguru.com, you can actually register for a free webinar. And it's businessgrowthguru.com/register, takes you straight to that page. It's 37 minutes long. It's like a recorded webinar. But you might find that really useful, because obviously it's quite graphical as well. So we do some drop screens in how to use Sales Navigator and the ideal messaging process as well. So we covered a little bit about the search. Obviously I'm conscious about other people might want to ask some questions as well, but would it be useful if I could come back to you in a few minutes' time?
Yeah, please, that's absolutely. Hi there, I'm here.
All right, okay. Now the other bit, which returning to your question, now what we have focused on is that how to find people in Sales Navigator, as a case in point. The next part really is to do with the outreach. Now I do have a slide here prepared in, or 2 slides here prepared in Blue Peter fashion. So the first thing is what we class as the 3 cogs. Now, we do go into a lot more detail on the webinar with all this. It's much more structured. But in effect, the first thing is to make sure your search is correct, which we talked about. The other part is making sure your profile is highly optimized on LinkedIn. Okay, and it's not the way that LinkedIn tell you to do it. They typically want your profile to look like a glorified CV. And actually, that if you're looking for a job, that's great. If you're looking to actually use LinkedIn as a serious business tool, then it's important your profile is optimized the right way. Okay, and a lot of people think the company page is really important, and it is important, but actually what people look at first, and invariably never move off to, is when you reach out to someone, it's that person's profile you would see. You wouldn't see their company page straight off the bat. So this is where your profile needs to be optimized, and it's very much about explaining a little about you personally, then building into the credibility of your organization, your core proposition. That's another paragraph. Then 5 or 6 key points as bullet points, very short sentences, and then 5 or 6 key benefits, then having a bit of a sales hook, something where you're sharing a bit of value or offering some sort of free diagnostic, and then having repeating your contact details. Now, LinkedIn, of course, enables you to put that in under the contact info tab, but we suggest also repeating it under the profile part as well. And if you use that in association with the next step, which is what we class as the prospect nurturing process, then what you'll find is the results you get from LinkedIn will be much, much higher. Okay. And then the sales optimization piece really is the point. So the lead generation part, you need to be ideally quite heavily involved in making sure the profile's properly optimized, making sure the search is right, and you pre-selected who you want to reach out to. On the prospect nurturing side, this is the part you can leverage and scale quite easily, especially for the first 2 or 3 messages. You could potentially get someone else involved to help you with that, and we can also help you to tap into a very low cost resource for that as well, if you're interested. That's where the real hub of it happens, as it were. And then once people start to put their hands up and want more information to have a sales-based conversation, that ties in really well with what we class as a sales optimization system, which of course will be your skills or the person who's backing up on it, their skills, in terms of being able to take opportunity and close that piece of business down. So that's what we refer to the 3 cogs. And the messaging process ideally should follow something, broadly speaking, like this. So it'd be about direct form outreach in the way of the connect request. Once you've selected the people you want to reach out to, then it's about basically, once the person's accepted the connect request, sending out a very short message, which would be something along the lines of, hi John, I've got a couple of questions I'd love to ask you, and I'd like to share some information. Is it okay? Kindest regards, Tess. Okay, very short, simple, no sales message. And what you'll find is that even if people haven't properly looked at your profile on the connection request side, when you send a thank you message out, people almost invariably do. And this time you've got perhaps 15 to 20 seconds of someone, sorry, 5 to 20 seconds of someone's time at this stage. So this is where your profile optimization is so important. And what will happen is at that stage, you'll get a percentage of people putting their hand up and say, thanks for reaching out. Yes, of course, I'm happy to answer a couple of questions. So if they do engage at that stage, what you want to do is to get people off the platform as quickly as possible. So you want to be able to go back to the person and say, can I suggest we have a short 10 or 15 minute discovery call to explore? And if so, when suits you? And and then that becomes a piece of engagement over the phone, ideally, and that then leads on to the next stage. If people don't engage at that stage, it doesn't mean to say they're not interested. It may just mean that they're on the go. Yeah. Their app, and what they mean to do is they mean to follow up when they get back in the office, when they get home, and they don't get around to it. So what we suggest is sending out another message about 7 to 10 days later, just saying, broadly speaking, saying that you may remember I tried to reach out to you about a week or so back. Is there any particular challenges you face in your organization? If so, I'd love to have a short exploratory call with you, and so on. And then if you, depending what process you follow, and there's about 4 or 5 different processes we'd recommend depending on who you're trying to reach, you could follow up with some further messaging where you share a bit more value and ask another killer question. So that this process works really well. And the good thing is on the minus side, it's a bit time consuming, but we can show you how to get back your time so you don't have to get involved with a lot of this. On the plus side, apart from paying for Sales Navigator, then that's, effectively it's as close to free as you can get. So does that help to answer your question, Tess?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, good. Okay. Yeah, by all means, register for the webinar. Actually, let me go to the page in question, so it's just a reminder there. So there's a screen grab from it. So basically, if you go to businessgrowthbureau.com and then /register, or just choose the register webinar button. And if you decide to do that, or anyone else decides to do this on the call, when you get to the end, you can book in a strategy call with me. There's a chargeable option there at £67, which gives a strategic review at 90 minutes. But also, or you can book in a free call Mural, and you're invited to also complete what we class as a questionnaire, a business growth scorecard, and that helps us to really drill down what's important. So, Tess, any other questions you'd like to ask around that?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Okay, right, let me just see if there's anything else that anyone else is asking here. I can't see any other questions in the chat window, and I think we've covered everything else for the moment, because I think, although I can see Melanie's asked a question, Bajoko has as well. I think hopefully you'll both agree, Melanie and Bajoko, that I've actually covered those for you as part of my answers to Tess and Margarita earlier on. So I think if everyone's done, we'll probably call that a wrap. So have a wonderful evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining in tonight. And if you've got any questions, do reach out to me. Do register for the webinar if you can. All right, so have a great evening. Thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Good night.